Hi everyone. I've got Mr. Thesis Whisperer's office because he's in Norway, and I have 2 teenagers in the next room, and they're gaming and they're just talking about it as they game. So I thought I'd come into Mr. Thesis Whisperer's office and make a video. And the video I'm going to make today is about employability and a diagram, and but first of all I'll show you some kit that I got. So here's my new kit. Thank you, Patreon. Your Patreon dollars at work. It's a little like tripod-y thing that sits on the desk, because you seem to really like when I drew pictures. So I thought, oh, I'll draw some more pictures. But I needed sort of something other than just holding the camera in my hand. So here it is. So I just put the camera on the top, and I guess away we go. So here we are with a blank piece of paper. I hope I don't get drawing anxiety. Okay, so if you want to draw the bedazzled daisy diagram, a lot of people have trouble just actually drawing it, which is fair enough. It's very simple. You start off with an oval that goes down the page like that, and then you want to create a center of the daisy. So you go down here and overlap there. Okay, and then we want daisy petals out the side. So we start with the center of the daisy, drawing out and around, and I usually just keep it going. I'm showing off a bit now. Okay, and then we want daisies in a diagonal. So again, we start with the center, up and down, and again starting in the center, up and down. Now the beautiful thing about the bedraggled daisy diagrams is you've got these sort of clear petals, and then you have these sort of fruitful overlaps. And the idea behind a diagram like this is really just to start you to visualize your thoughts rather than sort of have it murky running around in your head. You put it out on paper where you can look at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of what I think are my key skills, and I'm going to put them in each one of the petals, and then I'm going to have a think about which ones of these skills people will pay money for. Okay, so the first one I'm going to start with is architecture, because that's what I studied. I've even got architecture handwriting, even if I can't put things in the right length anymore. I used to be able to judge the width of thing, you know, and do the letters across. Anyway, old school skills. So I did about 16 years of training and teaching in architecture. Hung out with architects for about 16 years. More recently, I do a lot of social media. A lot of skills involved with social media, thinking about audience, presentation, making things, who to share them with, how to talk about them, all sorts of things. So I've been doing that, I think, pretty hardcore for about 7 years, professionally. Okay, then more recently I've picked up a more recent skill, which I'm going to call research commercialization. And this is what I've been working on lately the most, is building a product using an algorithm that we designed. Much easier than it looks to talk and write at the same time. So I've sort of been developing my skills in commercialization. Let's say it's sort of nearly 2 years now, 18 months, close enough. As you can see by my whole drawing here, I have some skills in drawing. Actually, I'm much better if you give me a computer to draw with. And I also have sort of skills in, I suppose, visual literacy. So being able to make slides and things that communicate clearly. I can communicate with words and images. You know, how long have I been doing and developing that skill? I suppose I started in 1989 in my architecture degree, so that makes it, what, 30 years? Let's say 29. You'd think I'd be able to draw better for 29 years of work at it. Anyway, I also have some interesting knowledge. So I know a lot about employability for post-PhD students. Post-PhD, and I've been working on that knowledge for about 5 years now. So I actually know a lot about it. Still a lot I don't know. Doing research in it, learn more about that every day. Real interest of mine. Generally, well, I did my PhD about gesture, So I have at least 3 years worth of knowledge about gesture, which I've never really done anything with. But let's call this kind of also, I know about embodied communication. So about how people speak, did a lot of sort of conversational analysis, that kind of thing. So it's actually sort of a really weirdly useful skill for me, but I'm not sure how it fits in yet. So we'll see how it all comes out in the wash. I also, obviously, I like to write, and I would say I've been writing academically, professionally for about 15 years now. And I've been teaching for a very long time. So 1994 I started, so what are we, 24 years? Okay, so all of those things are what I consider my key sort of knowledge and skills areas. And this is me, so they sort of mush together inside me. So, you know, obviously, if you're doing interdisciplinary research, and you can see I'm quite interdisciplinary here, some things go together really well, like writing and social media and visual literacy. You know, those three things together actually do a lot of work for me. I don't get so much paid for it, I guess, but blogging is, well, it pays me in other ways. So, so those things work well together. Research commercialization and social media work quite well together because there's ways of sort of communicating and selling things, I suppose, if I wanted to sell my skills there. Teaching, I always get paid for teaching. So I can teach, of course, any one of these things, which is sort of a handy sort of meta skill to have. And I've got this weird skill of architecture. I call it weird now because, you know, at the time it wasn't weird. I could go and work in an architect's office, but now I've got all these other pedals that are much more developed up, and they don't really fit inside an architecture's office. So maybe drawing and visual literacy does, but the rest of it, not so much, actually. But perhaps I could go back to teaching architecture, perhaps, writing about architecture, perhaps. Anyway, it's weird because even though a skill might sit there really dormant for quite a long time, someone rang me up the other day because I had an architecture background to put me on a project. So, you know, you never know when things come back. So I think we need to sort of think about how we might have many petals to our flower, and they all combine inside us. But when we talk to other people about who we are, we might be only talking about one petal at a time. And sometimes these petals will get paid for and sometimes they won't. And I really like this diagram too because you can have these kind of crossovers, and you can think about how are these crossovers, what might I do there between those two skills? So between knowing about employability, post-PhD, kind of career paths and stuff, and my drawing and visual literacy, well, that's what I'm actually doing now. I'm visually literate, I can express myself visually. I'm actually talking about employability. So that's a sort of good example of where the petals overlap. Also, say it's and teaching. I recently managed to activate that crossover there by finishing a book about writing. So it's a combination of those two skills. In order to write a book teaching people how to write, you have to know how to teach, you have to know how to write. So this can also give you some sort of sense of where's the possibilities of my skill, like where could I do something extra? So if I was to look at this crossover here between social media and research commercialization, how can I monetize? Thesis Whisperer might be what I'd think to myself. Also consider that you can rotate your daisy. So you could take this one and put it over here, and this one and put it here, or this one, and mix up and find different petals. Or you can look for the three-way overlap, which is really this bit in here. So what's the overlap between gesture, embodied communication, employability, and visual literacy? I don't know. Probably not much. So, but if I twist it around and I've got social media, employability, and visual literacy, well, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm conveying some of my knowledge through social media and my visual literacy skills. Anyway, I hope that's a kind of useful thought exercise. Thanks again to Christian Luca. Her book is Salsa Dancing in the Social Sciences. Try saying that 3 times fast after a gin and tonic. And that is a really good book for using. She shows you how to use it for literature review, but I just thought I'd do an interesting variation here. So that's my diagramming technique, or sort of a hack on that. So I'm thinking about what I do in a couple of weeks' time. Interested in taking any requests, things that you want to do, especially if it's to do with drawing, because now I've got all this drawing, filming thing, and I love to draw. Anyway, I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time.